I didn't have any teachers. I didn't have any spiritual teachers at all. I derived what I derived from my own study of consciousness on my own. Now, yes, I did read books, but probably from a viewpoint of somebody like Rupert, not all that many books. I'm not that well read on the subject, but I found things in the Eastern philosophy that kind of said, yeah, I understood that. Yeah, these ideas work for me, but that's not where I started. I started with science and with investigation and with study. And my model basically also says that consciousness is what is fundamental. Consciousness is the source of everything. But I got to that because in my studies of my own consciousness, I realized that I could, with my intent, my conscious intent, modify things in the physical reality. But I could not, with my, and do anything physical that really changed consciousness at all. So to me, that says the arrow of causality is from consciousness to the physical. That means that consciousness is the superset and the physical is the subset. So that, when I got to that point, I knew that consciousness was the fundamental thing, not physical. So I developed the same understanding as Rupert, and I slowly had to own it as he did. It's a matter of, for me, I'd say that it's a matter of taking it from the intellect and taking it into the level of being. You have to live it. You have to be it. And when you be it, then it's yours and you own it. If it's just thoughts, it's just intellectual, well, then you can think about it and you can discuss it and you can compare it, but it's not yours. You have to live it and be it. And for me, that was just a gradual process of understanding of what's important and what's not, what's significant and what's not. And some years in this process, I kind of surprised myself, caused myself to have to laugh a bit, because as the young, brash, arrogant physicist that I was, most young men, now I'm learning these things starting probably in my middle 20s. My first connection with meditation was probably 22, 23, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I'm a young adult as these ideas are coming to me, and I was astonished that much of what I had seen of religion, not the dogma, not the creeds, not all that stuff, but what matters, the cores of that, I found out it was actually true. And that made me laugh, because as the brash, arrogant physicist, I was, religion, that's foolishness, for weak-minded people who need something to cling on to, et cetera, et cetera. You know how the kind of the atheist viewpoint is. Well, that was my viewpoint. Reality is nothing more than what you can measure. If you can't measure it, it isn't important. That's called an operational definition of reality. So there I was at that spot and had to make the transition to a much different spot, which was realizing that there are two different worlds out there that we live in, and one's the objective world and one's the subjective world. And that the one that is most important, where most all the real action is, where all the real substance is in the subjective world. I mean, think of all the choices that you make that are really important. Who do I marry? What job do I take? Things, where do I live? Who am I? All of those are entirely subjective. And the objective world, well, that's just the props on the stage. That's just the stuff. Well, okay, some of that can be sort of important, but that's not where, the real significance is in living, in being. So just approaching it as a scientist, looking at what is real, what is meaningful, what is significant, and what is not, I eventually came to be where Rupert is, from that viewpoint of understanding that consciousness is fundamental and that everything else is derived thereof. Now, I did that with a model. I put together a model of reality because that's what physicists do. They model reality. So, I'm a creature of science. So I looked at all the facts that I knew from my study of consciousness, and I looked at all the facts that I knew from my study of physics and said, what understanding, what model can I come up with that answers all of those facts, the physical facts and the subjective facts and the objective facts? So I worked on that, and eventually I ended up writing the book, my answer to that. And what the answer was, in a very short explanation, is that consciousness is about information. Consciousness is an information system. Now, what we're conscious of in our physical body, which I call the avatar, it's your physical body is an avatar. Mm-hmm. We're just conscious of the information that comes through our five senses. That's the information. Now, in consciousness itself, there's a lot more information. All that subjective side is also information. Understanding is information. Knowing is information. Now, it's not just information, but as consciousness, it's what you make of that information. It's how you interpret that data. That's what I'm calling information. So the information isn't the data. It's the content. It's the meaning. It's the significance. It's the understanding. That's the information, not data. Okay. So when I saw consciousness as an information system, I realized that consciousness as a system is evolving. Systems change. That's just the nature. We grow, we change. I knew I had grown, I had changed, and I know everything else kind of grows and changes with time. And because I'm a physicist, I have to see things as finite. That's why I would not use the word infinite. It's finite. It is not perfect. It doesn't know everything, or it doesn't, it can't pay attention to everything at once. It's a finite system, but it to us would appear infinite. It is everything. Everything not only we do know, but everything we can know. We cannot get outside of the system because we are of the system, and we are just subsets of that system. Now, if you're a computer scientist, you'd say we were, a partition off a piece of that system. So we're a piece of that system, a virtual machine inside a larger machine. However you say it, we're just a subset of that. We are it. Yeah. And that old phrase of we're one, it's true. We are one. So now I saw consciousness as an information system. Information systems evolve by lowering their entropy, by creating information and the value of that information. I saw this whole reality as a virtual reality where our body is the avatar. Consciousness is our consciousness. Consciousness is the player. The body's the avatar.